All right, let's dive into the part of the Constitution that I love talking about. It's the Bill of Rights. This is the back of the Constitution where we are going to dive into the first 10 amendments. Okay, there's 27 amendments, but we're going to focus on the first 10 called the Bill of Rights. All right, we're going to skip past this slide because normally we do a group activity, but since we're not in school, we're not going to do that, unfortunately. So the first 10 amendments of the United States Constitution, these pictures kind of give you a quick overview of it. And that'll kind of help you understand because we learn with pictures and with video. So feel free to pause this video to kind of take a look. Remember, you have access to the slides as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the explanation. So let's start talking about the First Amendment. Amendment number one, in my opinion, is the most important amendment. Now, we can respectfully disagree, and that's totally fine. But this is such an important amendment because it protects a lot of our basic freedoms. Like, number one, religion. So, freedom of religion allows people to believe and practice any religion they want, and they can choose to follow any religion they want. And the government cannot make sure we're doing certain things for that religion. Now, we can't obviously have a religion that hurts other people, like human sacrifice or illegal drug use. But if it's a religion that you believe in, you have the right to practice that. So, very important. Number two is freedom of press. So, this is still part of the First Amendment, and it protects with the freedom of press. Press just means newspapers, radio, journalists, reporters, anything that's giving you news. Okay, so that's that group of people is called the press. So this freedom is awesome, you guys, because it allows people to publish their opinions and information without the government stopping them. Okay, now obviously they can't tell lies, outright lies, or anything like that. But if our government is doing something wrong, we as citizens or the press can actually publish it as long as it's credible. Now, it could be through any type of media, including newspaper, radio, TV, printed pamphlets, or online documents. Now, there are some things, like I said, you can't publish that would damage someone's reputation or copying someone else's work. But it is an awesome thing that if our government is hiding something or there's something illegal or bad, the press has the freedom to publish it without getting thrown in jail or anything like that. There are some countries, unfortunately, where you can't say anything bad about their leaders. So this is pretty amazing that we live in a country like that. Also, part of the First Amendment, it protects us from our freedom of speech. So the government cannot punish us for expressing just our opinion. So let's say I don't like, I don't know, a certain I don't know, TV show or a certain group or even a certain leader. I can still say I don't like that. It protects my freedom of speech. Like I said, other countries, you're not even allowed to say those kind of things, or you could go to jail. Freedom of assembly is also in the First Amendment. It allows groups to just gather together as long as it is peaceful. That means you can get together on the sidewalk and, do a protest if you wanted to, or just get together and plan something. And then the last one is freedom of petition. So, freedom of petition means that you can sue the government if you feel that you have been wronged. So, you can go to court and sue the government or a smaller branch of government if you feel like, hey, it's wrong. So, just to review, the Amendment 1 alone covers these five important things: freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of petition. Okay. All right. Amendment number 2, it's the right to keep and bear arms or carry a weapon, but not the right to arm bears. So this amendment started a long time ago when probably when the soldiers were living in our homes, and that was a long time ago in the 1700s. And this amendment has just stayed on. So people do have the right to bear arms, which means they can carry a weapon. Now, they can't just go around and shooting things. Obviously, there's a responsibility. You have to sign up for it, you have to register for it. There's a background check involved, at least for the people who are doing it the right way. So there's a lot of responsibility that goes into it. What messes it up sometimes are people who are not doing things the right way. And so then it's kind of a scary situation. But for the most part, our Bill of Rights does protect this right. Okay, so Amendment 4 says no unreasonable search and seizure. What that means is the police have to have a specific sheet of paper called a warrant, and they have to present that evidence to a judge. Okay, the judge has to look at all the evidence and go, okay, I think you have the right to go search their home. Let me give you a warrant. And they'll give him a piece of paper. And the reason for this amendment was it came about because back in the 1700s, the British tax collectors, they would just use warrants to enter and search any house they wanted to without even suspicion of someone doing something wrong. And the founding fathers wanted to protect people from that kind of invasion from the government. So this is kind of where that came about. Now, some searches are allowed without a warrant. For example, airports and or drunk drivers on roads, like they don't need a warrant to like search your car. Roadblocks. Now, those searches are more for the protection of all citizens, so they don't need a warrant for those. But if they come to your house, then they should have a warrant for that. Amendment 5, I'm not going to get too much into this, but it's called no double jeopardy. It just basically protects the person from going to jail or even just going to court for the same crime. They can't go to be tried for the same crime more than one time. So if they were found not guilty, they can't go back for the same type of crime. No forcing people to be witnesses against themselves. What that means is the right to not testify against yourself during a trial. So you don't have to answer questions in a trial that would be against you. Okay. And a lot of people call it, I plead the fifth. So you can say, I plead the fifth. And sometimes that means that you're not going to say anything until you have a lawyer who's going to help represent you. All right. So Amendment 5 continued means no punishment without due process of law. What that means is that you have certain rights, and the police officer gives you Miranda rights. They'll say, you might have heard this before on TV shows. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand the rights I've just read to you? With these rights in mind, do you wish to speak to me? So you have the right to say, nope, I plead the fifth. Okay. So you don't get punished without the steps to a proper, fair trial. All right. Amendment 6 says you have a right to a speedy public trial by a fair jury. Okay. So a fair jury means, like, if you look at this hilarious cartoon, the dog is on trial and he says, I'm in deep doo doo. And the cat says, Your Honor, all these cats say they can be fair. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's fair or impartial. Impartial means like, you're not being fair or being fair, sorry. Um, so when you are sitting in a court of law, you want to have people on the jury who are going to, be fair to you. So you do have a right to a lawyer if you can't afford one. They will have like a public lawyer for you. So that's Amendment 6. Amendment 8 says no excessive, meaning like a huge amount of fine or a bail. Here's an example. If you were speeding, your fine shouldn't be $1 million. Instead, maybe it should be like a couple of $100 because speeding is bad, but it's not as bad as, let's say, someone who robbed a bank. Okay. So it should be a reasonable fine or amount of money. Bail means that the money that you can get to leave jail for a day or two or until they are preparing for your trial. And then no cruel and unusual punishment is also part of Amendment 8. What that means is they can't give you the death penalty for just something as simple as speeding. That would be cruel and unusual and so severe. That's like if you didn't do your homework in class, okay? Like I would be like, you're kicked out of school forever. Like, that's not fair. I think a fair punishment would be like, okay, maybe you get a phone call home, or maybe you just need to come in for a recess and do it, or something like that. Back in the old days, in the 1700s, when people wouldn't pay their taxes or certain things, they would literally throw tar, this black liquidy stuff, on them, and then they would put feathers on them. And imagine the sticky stuff sticking with the feathers. Horrible. So they would have some really cruel and unusual punishment. All right. So I know I didn't do exactly all 10. There were a few amendments there that we don't need to get into, but those are the kind of the big 10 amendments for the Bill of Rights. Okay. If you have time and you want to check out my trip to Washington, go for it. I might walk you through it really, really quick. So I took a trip to Washington a couple of years ago. Super fun. I highly recommend you go with your families, and you're at a perfect age where you're starting to understand history. And this would be great for you to go either this summer or even your next summer or the summer after. It would be awesome. So Washington, D.C. obviously is our nation's capital. It's a very cool place to visit. Make sure you go. The three branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. And then this is it in pictures. Legislative has the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay. And that whole thing is called Congress. And then they work in the US Capitol building, which is right here in Washington. So then the executive branch is the president, the vice president, and the cabinet members. They work in the White House. And then we have the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court, and they work in the Supreme Court. Okay. So I went on a little quick tour. Our first stop was the United States Capitol, which is where the legislative branch is. And this is the beautiful Capitol building. This is where our senators and representatives work. This is where they make and pass all of our laws. So it's hard to see, but that's me walking up the steps of the Capitol building. And then this is the view across the street right there. This is the Washington Monument, or this is called Washington Mall. That is where Dr. Martin Luther King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech right there. It was amazing to see that. And then these are just different views of the Capitol building I got on different sides. That's inside the Capitol building, and you are not allowed to go into that room, but that's where the House of Representatives, that's where they meet. And then a little tour inside the Capitol building. They had a cool statue. That was awesome. This is the Statue of Freedom. It's located on top of the Capitol building. And this is more beautiful work inside. Of course, you have Martin Luther King Jr., and this is Abraham Lincoln. And that was the ceiling right there. Is that cool? And then I walked down Constitution Avenue. Perfect name, right? 800 Constitution Avenue. And then I found the judicial branch of government. So this is where our Supreme Court justices work. There are 9 of them. Of course, the day that I went, they were under construction. And so all of that you see are like scaffolding that they had construction on it. But obviously, that's what it would look like without it. So I just wanted to show you that. And then my next stop was the most famous address in the entire world, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That is the White House. It's home to President of the United States. So the president and his advisors are the head of our executive branch, and their main responsibility is to execute or enforce the laws of our country. And this is the famous White House garden kept by our former First Lady Michelle Obama. So if you're watching this and Michelle Obama is not the First Lady, that's because this is a really, really old slideshow. She wasn't there that day I visited. She was actually in North Carolina for a convention. And that's me telling the president, I'm here, let me in already. And then this is the White House by day, and that's the White House by night. And then those are my two sisters and my brother-in-law. And then this is the National Archives building. So this building is so important. It has so many important documents that we've learned, like the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, and other important documents too, like the Louisiana Purchase, the abolition of slavery, the Emancipation Proclamation, the women's rights, and so on. Okay, there's a little YouTube video there if you want to click on that. So my trip to Washington was almost over, but then, oh my gosh, you guys, it happened. You'll never, ever guess who I ran into, but you're going to see. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so hold on tight. Here it is. Guess who I met? I met President Obama. By the way, he is taller than me, but who isn't, right? And thanks for watching my trip to Washington, D.C. Don't forget to vote for that guy when he runs for president one day. Well, we'll see. All right. Now, if you guys have a time over the weekend, maybe don't do it during a school night, but over the weekend, put this on your watch list if you haven't seen it already. It's such a good one. It's called National Treasure. And some of the important documents that we've actually talked about, you will see in there, including the building, the National Archives, the Constitution, and all of that good stuff. So, if you are ready to prepare for your quiz, this is what you need to prepare. So you need to know all these vocab words right here. You need to know all of the First Amendment. I don't want you to know all 10 amendments. I just want you to focus on the First Amendment. And you pretty much need to memorize what is the First Amendment? What are the freedoms? Speech, right, press, petition, assembly, religion. I think in 4th grade you learned a song about it, didn't you? And then you need to know, what is the purpose of the Constitution and how is it organized? Okay. If you click right here on these Quizlet flashcards, you can use those flashcards to help you review, or you can make your own. And if you're not ready to take the quiz right now, no problem. Take another day and just stop and review. And then you can, of course, take the quiz when you feel comfortable. But it shouldn't be too bad if you paid attention to all of this good stuff, okay? When you are ready for the quiz, you're going to log into Schoology. You're going to go to Social Studies, and you're going to find the assignment. It's called Government Quiz Check-in number 2, Important Documents. I forgot the exact title of it, but that's kind of what you should be looking for. You take that quiz. There's only one submission, so take your time, do your best. I'm fine if you want to use your notes, and then review your answers when done. And then you are done for the day. So please go and tell your parents 2 to 3 big ideas from today's learning. And then if you're in remote learning, ignore these things. We were using that to review for like a big test, but you're not going to get a big test. Those 2 check-in quizzes should be plenty. Just for fun, if you want to, feel free to play that Kahoot game and see if you want to test yourself. All right, everybody. Thank you. Good luck.